and welcome to the start of a special weekly series of Property Matters on Dublin South FM for August in association with Proptech Ireland. For the next few weeks, we're going to be meeting people who are developing, driving, financing and indeed active in the PropTech and construction technology space. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host for today is myself, Carol Tallon, and today I'm in Dingle and I will be chatting to Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access. Damien, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for having me on today.
I'm delighted to be down in Dingle, and it must be said Dingle is packed.
It's jammed, yeah. It's been, as you know, it's been a crazy year, but so far it's been very busy here. And even some of the local restaurateurs and cafes are saying business is nearly on par with last year. So thankfully, for the moment, it's all good.
Well, that's really interesting for such a short tourism first season. So it's great to know that they will be able to at least recoup some of the season. So that's important. Damien, you've been on the show with us before. Generally, when we talk about PropTechs in Ireland, they tend to be startups. Standard Access, indeed, is not a startup. I think it's fair to say it's one of the longest established and certainly one of the most internationally renowned PropTech companies and providers in Ireland, although, of course, you're operating internationally. I mentioned that we're at your office in Dingle, so I feel like long before COVID-19 ever struck, you had the right idea in terms of not remote work, but working this work-life balance, that your office is in a beautiful place where I park the car, I actually had a sea view. So how long have you been working from here?
I've been in this office here 10 years. I've lived in a few different cities around the world, in San Francisco and in Sydney. And when it came to, I suppose, starting family and all that, we wanted to live somewhere that wasn't a city, but also had connectivity and had all the things you'd like to have, like nice restaurants and beaches and no traffic and low crime and stuff like that. So Dingle fitted the bill for that, I suppose. And we're lucky in Dingle, we're up to 1 gigabyte connectivity in the peninsula. And we're an hour from Kerry Airport. We're 2 hours from Cork and 2 hours from Limerick. So geographically, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a great place to be today because the sun is shining. It's beautiful. You know, we just went and had a lovely lunch. The town is thriving, certainly. And all we missed was Murphy's ice cream. That can be for afterwards. But again, it's really showcasing, you know, staycationing in Ireland. It's really having a positive effect, which is important to see. So you've been on the show before. Standard Access is one of our go-to PropTech providers, actually, when it comes to troubleshooting for technology for the built environment. So really what I wanted to do was use the opportunity today to talk more about maybe the origins of Standard Access, because this is my first time in your office. And one of the things I remarked on is that there was at least 7 or 8 or 9 awards, Irish and international awards. I don't think I've been into an office where there's been so many awards and high profile ones. So when did you start the business?
Started in 2014 and it was a direct response to my own career. I was a commercial real estate landlord for a long time, and I wanted to use technology to improve the inefficiencies of running big portfolios across Ireland and the UK. So that's where it began. That's where it started from. Those pain points was costing me money in my pocket, and I wanted to better manage my portfolio with my tenants and collecting rent and allowing access remotely, which is quite difficult when you're in one place. So that's where it started from. I was trying to solve the issues of contactless access, really. That's
a good place to start from. Usually when we speak to a technology provider for the built environment, they're coming with a particular product or a particular solution, whereas you're coming with a huge amount of knowledge and domain knowledge for secure data transmission. You know, you've really been kind of acknowledged as best in class in terms of IoT in Ireland for many years. And indeed, you're involved in some interesting projects now. Which came first? You're not a technology developer yourself.
I'm not, but the safety of my tenants and the safety of their data were the two most important things for me when I found the Standard Access. So I went out to try and find the best technology people I could within the budget I had. And I just made it very clear from the start. I said the security of the data and security of my tenants. I said, if those things are okay, I said, I'll relax knowing that they're safe and their data safe. Because, if I've got a happy tenant, they're going to stay there longer, they're going to pay me more money per square foot or per square meter. So the safety of the person, physically of the person, and of the data, because data now is the thing that people go after to steal. So from the very start, security had to be the best in the market, best in the world. And we've built security from the ground up around our technology, around our IoT and our software to be the best in the business, and that's what we achieved.
Okay, and I think it's important to point out that all of your development is done in-house, so you're not sending things out, which, again, a lot of the Proptech providers we speak to, if they're not coming from a tech background themselves, then generally they do need to rely on building relationships with software developers, whereas I know that you actually have this in-house, which I suppose adds another layer of security onto it and responsiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. Is one of the things we learned very early on. First of all, we use subcontractors and things like that, but we discovered that you were never guaranteed response times if something went wrong, or if that company went out of business, what are we going to do now? So we decided to bring everything in-house. We started a recruitment drive in 2018 to build out the team. So everything we produce today, from our own hardware, our own software, everything we build from the ground up is completely built by us. We don't depend on any third parties. And that way we can guarantee security for our clients.
Okay. And, it sounds like, obviously that makes sense. But as somebody who's been through the startup mill before and have worked with so many startups, there's a huge gap from acknowledging a need and wanting to do this and seeing the merit of doing this in-house to actually being in a position to pay the wages of people doing it and to find the right people. There's a huge amount of work that goes in between, here and there. So in terms of early investment, where did you start? Well, I presume you started with your own money.
I did, yeah. I'm still the single biggest investor in the business, and it was family and friends that helped me out at the start. And even in the last 12 months as well, it's been more family and friends as we've been growing. And Enterprise Ireland were a help as well at the early stages. Did
you work with your local enterprise board first? Or your LEO?
I actually went to Enterprise Ireland directly.
Okay.
And they were a great help, actually. And they helped, when they invested, also brought a bit of credibility to the company as well, because they're a big international name, even in Europe.
But not only that, but they have a reputation for doing due diligence that at times is very frustrating.
It gives a lot of reassurance to investors. And from that point of view, it was very helpful. But, being Ireland, being a small country and a small population, the amount of money out there that's available to invest in early stage companies is quite limited. So that's why we decided recently to engage, to start the next stage of our journey of fundraising, and we're looking to raise in the region of €4.5 million at the moment.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things there on what you've spoken about. But let's start with what I think is probably one of the most interesting. The Irish Independent, I think was Fergal O'Connor in the Irish Independent business section, actually featured standard access and your latest technology, which we're definitely going to get on to talking, because actually your team really stepped up and responded to the COVID-19 challenges. So we're definitely going to come on to that. But Fergal O'Connor in the Sunday Independent featured your latest innovation and also mentioned that you were starting a fundraising round. And I know that you actually got some responses directly from that.
Yeah, a person contacted me through the website. This guy in the United States had read the article online. He's no connection to Ireland at all whatsoever, but he does have an interest in IoT, security, and real estate. And just sent an email. It was a kind of a general email. Hi, how are you doing? I'm such and such. I've read this article in the Sunday Independent and I'd like to have a chat with you. So we had a call with him a few days after that, and it turns out he was one of the founders of one of the biggest startups in America of the last 15 years.
We better not give his identity away. He might not appreciate that. So he turned out to be a very credible person. So what stage are you at with that? I know that's only the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so we're just going through the due diligence at the moment. And all I can say is it looks positive. If it goes through, part of the deal will be setting up an office in the United States which actually wasn't even on our radar for the short term. But yeah, it would expedite that development side of our business.
So that's an amazing one. It just shows that actually, we don't know where the investment is going to come from, but actually that almost brings us back a step into the investment ecosystem in Ireland. And I've been criticised myself for saying that we don't really have an investment ecosystem in Ireland. You essentially have one state body dealing with everything, and then investors that come in and match it. And one of the things that we've been doing since 2016 is we've been tracking the investment coming into technology for the built environment, so whether it's property or construction. And we know that actually almost all of the investment has come from people within the industry, but people who are not investors in startups. So I think that's really interesting. You have the industry stepping up to finance people who are solving problems that they have. And to me, that seems like a really strong vote of confidence. But it also exposes a weakness in our investment ecosystem in Ireland. Like, what has your experience of that been?
As any founder will tell you, fundraising takes up way too much of your time. And particularly in Ireland, it probably takes up even more time because there's such a small investment pool of money in the country because we have a small population and whatnot, and we're just a relatively mature market, I suppose, in terms of wealth. But the environment for investing isn't ideal. We have the EIS revenue system for tax rebates on your investment, but it's not a patch on what's available in the UK. And the UK already has a head start because there's so much more money over there. So it's almost like you're trying to push water uphill when you're trying to bring in investors. It's not very attractive for them to make an investment in an Irish company, and industry groups like Scale Ireland, for example, are trying to push the government to change these things in past budgets and upcoming budgets to try and make it more of a fair and even more of a level playing field, to try and free up some of that cash that's in the banks. And of course, there's more cash in the banks now than there ever was before because of COVID. So we'd be hoping that the government might make some changes to encourage people, to incentivize people to invest in Irish companies. Okay,
can you spell that out for people? So what's the difference, say, your company approaching a London-based investor and a UK company approaching the same investor for the same amount of investment?
In terms of tax incentives, it'd be twice as more attractive to invest in a UK company as an Irish company, purely from a tax point of view. Mm-hmm. The problem is in Ireland, I suppose, is that we're not planning 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead. You know what I mean? We're planning for this year, this month, and until such time as that changes, we're not going to see any change. The amount of money invested in startups in Ireland isn't going to change. And we have a massive startup scene in Ireland, a massive amount of amazing technology companies starting off in Ireland with really great founders and great experienced teams. But the money just isn't being allocated or it's not being incentivized enough to go into it yet.
Is it taking too long, even for the companies that jump through all the state hoops? It's still taking a long time for the money to come through, which means, if you're talking about a 15 to 18 month wait for money that has already been allocated, that's, businesses go under in much less than that time, for startups that don't have the cash flow resources, so how are we allowing that happen?
I suppose we're just not prepared, or our agencies aren't prepared enough for it. Maybe they don't have the right mandate from government. To be fair to them, the mandate that Enterprise Ireland was given was created 20 years ago, and it hasn't even moved on in times. Even for inflation, it hasn't adjusted for the amount of money they invest. But the time taken from when you apply for funding until the time you actually get the funding, it can take anywhere from 9 months to up to 24 months, and that's not acceptable. It's not helping anybody. Mm-hmm. It's not helping the taxpayer either. It's not helping anybody. And at the moment, unless that changes soon, you could actually see that companies moving to London or Paris or Amsterdam or Berlin or other hotspots that are maybe more environmentally friendly from an investing point of view.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems at this stage, because again, as I started the show by saying, you're not a startup. Standard Access is not a startup. It's well established. You got supports in the early days. You attracted private investment, and now you're back looking for further investment to roll out new technology. So in fact, you've actually successfully navigated a lot of the things despite the challenges we've just spoken about. But, one of the important things that we want to do today is maybe speak to some members of your development team as well, to see if they can talk to us about some of the most recent developments. But can we just start before we, I suppose, get on to the pandemic responsive stuff? What I'd like to do maybe is start by talking about some of your early services, just to make it specific, because, we throw around terms like IoT, the Internet of Things, almost assuming that people know what it is and why it's important. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case. And, our audience is the traditional construction, planning, construction, property, and indeed property technology sectors. So let's talk about, maybe some of the practical uses. So what was your first service that you rolled out, or product, sorry?
First thing we built was contactless access. So think of what we call smart locks. And, you might have the card reader on the outside of the door for traditional card-based access systems. And we did that obviously with smartphones. And we used encrypted audio, just sound being sent from your phone to unlock doors.
Okay, how is that different to what we see in any hotel room?
From a usability point of view, everybody with a phone or even a tablet in the world can use our technology because it's sound. There's a microphone and speaker on the phone. You don't have to have the latest, greatest smartphone. You don't have the latest version of Bluetooth or NFC or anything like that. So it's, from a user's point of view, 100% of the world's population with his phone, even in an analog phone, can use our technology.
Okay. And in terms of security, because I know that while you're looking at multifamily properties and the private rented sector, you're also looking at particularly office space like flex space. I mean, actually, is it fair to say it's a full building access management system? But I suppose I'm interested to break down how that evolved. So it started with just allowing access into the building or in individual rooms?
Into any door in the building, really, from first day. So there's the front door, communal doors, plant rooms, garages, elevators, apartment doors, office doors. It was that we built it for first day. The software side of things then kind of evolved and came after that, like the dashboard on data usage. So how many times was the event room used in a week or a month? How often are those offices used? How much of them are used? The data that's collected on all these different points of access, it tells the owners and the manager of the space. It gives them a lot of very valuable information on how they can redesign spaces in the future, but also maybe they can let that space out as well.
Okay, talk to me. You talk about data and that's valuable. Let's break that down for people who maybe don't understand, because one of the things that I've definitely seen, and I don't think this is unique to the property or construction sectors, sometimes people don't understand the data that they're using. They don't understand the value of it. And in fact, increasingly, it has become more of a liability, that people think of it as more of a liability than an asset, something that has to be secured, but something that's vulnerable, but like I said, a liability rather than an asset.
I suppose the data, so every time you walk through a door with modern technology, where it's a phone or a card-based system, that's data created, and that's valuable data, because you can learn about the space within the building, how it's used, how it isn't used, and you can plan for the future. But also, when you have these data points, you can find out about the usage of lights, of energy, of electricity, of air conditioning, of air quality, of heating, lighting, and all these different things. They all create data. And if you can harvest that data, it can tell you an awful lot of information about how to save money and the usage of the space.
Yeah.
And when you get into big buildings, that becomes a quantifiable, a very big number very quickly.
Yeah, well, that's definitely something that we're going to get on to speaking about. We need to take a quick break now, but when we come back, we'll speak also with Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access, but also with some of the leaders of his technical team, maybe to get a breakdown of some of the technologies and specifically the pandemic responsive technologies that are being developed right now. So we'll take a quick break. Stay tuned.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters here for our Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Talon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. We're continuing our discussion with Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access, and we're now joined by the software lead of the technical team at Standard Access, Mihai Penica. Mihai, obviously you've been on the show before, but thank you for joining us again today.
Hey, hello there. Thank you, Carol. Thank you for inviting me.
No, I'm delighted.
It's a pleasure to join you.
Well, Mihai, it's very important when we speak to the CEO of technical companies to actually make sure that we speak to the software leads and the technical people, so we really see what's happening under the hood. So Damien was just talking to us there about, maybe some of the early origins of the business and, some of the early technology that was developed and how that's evolved. So really what I'm interested to know, the team that you're leading at the moment, well, first of all, you've been super responsive and very prompt in response to COVID-19 and the pandemic in terms of creating new products and indeed rolling them out. So will we start by introducing Savant, which is the people counting application?
Yes, that's true. Savant, basically, it's using AI and visual cognition in order to determine exactly how many people are entering in a building, how many people are getting out of the building, and of course, how many people are inside the building. Also, another thing that Savant is doing is basically following the people using the live video streaming from different cameras. So basically, we can know exactly and track exactly if a person was infected, where it was, what he did, what other person he got in contact with, and this way we have a tracking. The system is tracking basically interaction with other users. We don't use we're respecting GDPR, and we don't use face recognition or anything like that. So we respect privacy of the persons.
And that's a huge thing at the moment, because actually, in terms of understanding how many people are in a building or in a part or a zone of a building, in terms of complying with capacity regulations, that's been important for a long time for people like, festivals and nightclubs and for lots of different entertainment style venues and other venues. But now, as a result of the restrictions imposed on foot of COVID-19, the needs are very different. So how have you responded, or how have your team responded to that?
Well, basically, our system. I'm going to talk a little bit about what our system is doing.
Please do.
Basically, what our system is doing is when it detects a person, it identifies the fact that is a person, and then it just IDs that. It just gives a unique ID to that person, and that person has an ID and can be tracked everywhere. But we don't know exactly the name of the person, who that person is, or what's doing there.
So you're not running into any GDPR compliance issues.
Exactly. In case that person has a problem, like it is determined that it has COVID or whatever, then that ID can be assigned with a name, and of course can track, can be tracked and see exactly what other people he got in contact with. But until then, it's an anonymous person. We don't know. We don't want to know who that person is. We are just tracking to see exactly, that the rules are being respected. And, in this situation with COVID and everything, we just want to know that everyone is safe.
Okay. And in terms of the technology, because, I understand that you're able to distinguish one person from another. So instead of simply knowing how many humans are in a particular place at a particular time, individually, if one person has left, that it's that person that has left. But in terms of how sophisticated the technology is getting, we know as of this week, it's now mandatory for people in Ireland to wear masks when they're going into any shops and on public transport. So the technology in terms of restricting and helping venues to restrict capacity, that's one thing. But I understand there's capacity there in terms of identifying whether people are wearing masks.
Yes, the technology today allows us to do a lot of things, and using AI, it's giving us more power. Basically, we can identify if a person is wearing a mask by only training the neural network to detect if a person is wearing a mask or not. So we can do that. We can also identify if a person is staying 2 meters away from another person, same using video streaming and artificial intelligence. I mean, like I said, the technology evolved a lot, and today with the help of AI, we can do a lot of things.
Oh, that's an interesting one. So actually, even when through existing CCTV, there's no new hardware required for this. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't require any installation. We don't require any new hardware. Just using the existing CCTV cameras, we can do all of that.
But okay, so that's an interesting one though, because I was aware of the capacity and head counting, which is vital right now for businesses and for lots of venue owners and managers. But actually, you can detect, or the technology can detect, if people are breaching the 2 meter distance.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a way to maybe alert people if that's happening?
Yeah, everything it's being done in real time. So in case that happens, an alert is being sent to the building administrator, or the system allows us to set up an email or a person that's handling all of this. So if that's not being respected, the 2 meters distance not being respected, that person will be sent an email or an alert in real time to that is happening.
Okay, and Damien, you have 2 decades of experience managing portfolios. How important is this for building owners and managers right now?
It's very important, Carol, because building managers and property managers and people working in facilities management, they don't have a lot of extra time to deal with the new problems of the COVID-19 has brought upon us. So if you can use technology as simple as the software as we've built, without having to spend any money on hardware or downtime for installations, and allowing your staff to continue going about their everyday tasks without having to monitor people or watch out if they're wearing masks or they're socially distant. It frees up their time, lets them get on with their jobs where they could be security people as well.
Okay, and in terms of buildings, in terms of rooms, so I'm thinking specifically in a public building, or indeed in a large office building or flexible work office building, things like bathrooms. We know that most people are, maybe restricting that in a public bathroom that might have, 6 or 8 stalls, only 2 people are allowed in at a time. But how do people know that unless they actually walk in? And obviously you can't put cameras in bathrooms. So, I mean, is there a tool to deal with that specific use case?
Yeah, well, you can have a camera that's outside of the door of the bathroom. So basically, you can count how many people are getting in the bathroom and how many people are getting out of the bathroom. So that's easy.
Okay, so because again, that's one of the challenges that building owners have. And actually, one of the, we actually had a discussion amongst some property owners and managers and building managers. And one of the issues that came up was that, where there was, where capacity was breached, would there be an ability to restrict access into a room? So say, for example, if it was a boardroom or another room, is there automatic or is it the facility to connect the data and the information that's coming in with the access system?
Well, using the SAB, our hub, that basically it's an IoT device. Our hub can take all that data and can send it to different systems in the building. So basically, it can unlock or lock the doors, taking into account how many people are inside the building or how many people are waiting to get inside the building.
Okay, Mihai, as I mentioned, your team had actually, had this developed and rolled out exceptionally quickly. So is this something that you had already identified, like prior to the pandemic? Was this something that was already identified as necessary for buildings?
Well, not really. I always like to work in artificial intelligence, and I already had a few things developed. So when the pandemic came and everything, I just put everything I had into practice, and we just came up with this product.
That's amazing. That's, I mentioned at the top of the show that Standard Access is not a startup, that it's very much an established technology provider for the built environment. And actually, this just shows one of the great examples of this, that you actually had innovation that you were working on that was sitting around waiting to be used. Is that the kind of technology that's referred to as orphan technology, where it's, developed for one use and not fully put to use, and then it's sitting there waiting if needed in the future?
Well, it's not exactly orphan technologies. I like to call it research. So basically, we're trying to improve the product and come with new solutions that will help the building managers or will help people in general. So I don't like the term orphan technology. Like I said, I like to say it's just research that will help in the future.
Yeah, well, look, obviously it served your clients well and the industry well, because obviously there's such an immediate need for this, and it's obviously the pandemic gave rise to problems that we just never had to solve before. So actually any company that was in a position to step up and innovate quickly and roll out quickly, which is difficult to do, certainly there's a competitive advantage there to be had. But Damien, just knowing your experience of managing portfolios, what's next in terms of managing the pandemic as we try to get back, but we're seeing second wave?
I suppose the technology we developed, the crowd counter and the ability to see if people wear a mask or not, that is going to evolve more in terms of managing quality of air in buildings. The health of buildings could become a big issue. And people knowing the health of a building before they actually go into the building, or a room or a lobby or an office, that if the air quality isn't the healthiest, or it's too stuffy because there's too many people in there, that they can be redirected to another part of the building.
Okay. And I suppose, we actually start in the last section by, we didn't get into explaining IoT for people who maybe don't understand. So Mihai, while we have you on the line, will you explain to people, because again, we use the term IoT, we credit so much to IoT sensors and the data that's being collected, but will you explain briefly just how that works for building owners?
Well, an IoT device, basically, it's a device that has low resources, and basically it's gathering data from all the building sensors, all what's happening in the building, and sending it to a server that data can be worked with. So basically, there's different kinds of IoT devices. There's different kinds of devices that does that. But an IoT device is basically, like I said, getting the data, processing. Some of the devices are processing the data, but some of the devices are sending the data directly to a server where it's being processed. It's being sent to a data lake.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that, Mihai, because it's something that we refer to kind of almost weekly, and yet we probably don't take the time to explain or discuss. But one of the things that I've noticed in the past, and I've been a little bit critical of, is that, we've had great pockets of innovation, but they don't seem to be cohesive. They don't seem to be joined together. So, in terms of the technology that and the products that you're deploying now, can they be integrated into existing building management systems?
Yes, right now the technology, we have some APIs, we call it open APIs, that basically can interact with any other type of building technology that exists over there. I mean, there's no problem there. And apart from that, our team is willing to develop new APIs and new ways of interacting with other systems. So we are open to new technologies.
Okay, and what's next? I suppose before we let you go, I understand that I'm sure you and your team have your hands full actually in continuing the rollout of Savant, which is the headcount capacity tool that's actually being deployed through existing CCTV for businesses or for building owners and managers. But what are your team working on after that?
Well, we have a lot of projects right now, but mainly we are focusing on how artificial intelligence can improve the life of people living in buildings, and how artificial intelligence can improve the management and the way that building manager can handle all that's happening inside a building. Okay,
we've heard it said that COVID-19 across all sectors, not just planning, construction and property, that COVID-19 has really furthered the case of digital transformation. That it has done more in 3 or 4 months than maybe was done in 3 or 4 years. Do you think that's the reality?
Well, yeah, I think that's true, because everyone was expecting there were like a lot of delays getting new technology on the market. But with all this COVID-19 that's happening, everyone is hurrying up to adapt to the reality, basically, because it's the fact is that our life has changed, and we have to find new solutions in order to make it a little bit normal.
Yeah. Yeah, look, we don't, it's very difficult to provide solutions for the new normal when we don't know what that looks like. Damien, you probably have the most experience of anyone here in terms of offices and dealing with the changing needs of office occupiers. What do you see is coming next?
I think in terms of office developments in the future, I would say that office buildings will actually get bigger, because there's going to be more space required for every user.
Do you think that even with more people working from home and remote working?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting.
I think that we're not going to go to one extreme of work from home or one extreme of back in the office. It's going to be a healthy mix, I would say, of 2 or 3 days collectively per week for each worker, because we are social people, social beings at the end of the day, and we need a social interaction. But so the future, I think, will be the Google style, the Facebook style of offices, where you've lots of room, lots of internal gardens, living gardens. It's going to be more about providing the amenities for each person to make it as healthy and as conducive, I suppose, to productivity as possible. So no, going back into on-door offices or people being piled into tight spaces, that's well gone, thankfully. Thank God.
Yeah. So Mihai, it sounds like you and your team will be kept busy trying to actually develop the new tools that we need going forward for office changes. But for now, we need to take another quick break. My thanks again to Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access, and by software lead of Standard Access, Mihai Penica. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back after a short break with Damien. Stay tuned.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to our Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM with myself, Carol Tallon. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. So we're continuing our discussion down here in Dingle with Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access. So Damien, we've discussed the technology there with your software lead, Mihai. And one of the terms that kept coming up was contactless. Now, I know that that's something that was actually a feature of your technology, but how have you doubled down on that as a result of the pandemic?
Because of not having, contactless really is about not having to use physical keys, not having to meet somebody. The cost of someone a property owner sending someone across the city with a bunch of keys to open a door for a potential tenant, for a real estate agent, for a gas inspection, for the local government inspector, whatever it may be, that costs money, it takes time, and it's fraught with difficulties in terms of keys going missing, and then you got to bring in a locksmith to change locks. So we came up with the idea to use our mobile phones. The one thing that everybody carries in their pocket, a mobile phone. And the technology we use to open that door with a virtual key is sound, encrypted audio sent from your phone securely to the door. And the reason we use that is because everybody in the world has a phone, has a speaker and a microphone. So you don't have to have the latest iPhone 11 or the latest Huawei P20 or whatever it is. Anybody with a phone can use this technology. But the beauty about it is, in terms of security, it's so much more secure than using Bluetooth or using NFC or Wi-Fi or any other technology like that.
Is the code, the encrypted sound code, is that sent via a text message or? It's
sent, but it's a sound wave sent from your phone.
But how does the person get it on their phone?
So your credentials are created by the landlord or your employer first day, depending if you're an employee, based on your pay grade, and that would dictate what doors you're allowed through in that building or another building or a whole range of buildings.
So for any individual, it can be tailored to what doors they open?
Yes, you can dictate.
Is it time limited?
You can do both. So for cleaners, you might want them to go through every door from 9 to 5, Monday to Sunday. For your CEO, it'd be through the front door, the elevator, the garage, the executive floor, so on and so forth. And maybe the junior operatives might be allowed onto the first floor, second floor, or part thereof. And that can be recurring access Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or it can be, if they're on night shift, it might be 8 till 8 next morning, or it can be once off. So you might want a plumber to come in or electrician, and you might want to agree with your tenant. Listen, is it okay if we fix your problem on Tuesday morning between 10 and 11? And if they say yes, and you get in-app chat back confirming it, a text message saying, yeah, that's okay, you can create a key to send out through the internet to that team of plumbers or electricians to go and fix that problem. And they're only allowed through those doors through that time into that building. And it all creates an audit trail, so you know exactly who went through what door, what time. And if someone breaks the rules of the building, or their lease is up, or whatever it may be, you can reject the access immediately in real time. There's no collecting a key off somebody afterwards, or a card or anything like that, and that kind of stuff.
It actually strikes me that would be a really good solution for even for things like meeting rooms and boardrooms, because it's so difficult in terms of, as somebody who has shared and worked in kind of large co-working spaces, you know, when you book a meeting room, you know, if there's somebody still in it, and you know, these things are still quite manual.
They are indeed. The growth in co-working and flex space has been phenomenal the last couple of years, but they're still using all technologies. They're physical people, human beings behind counters, waiting for you to arrive after 9 o'clock to administer. What's your ID? Show me your passport or your driver's license. Sign that form. Blah blah blah. Here's your plastic card, or here's your key, and that takes time and costs money. So you want to eliminate that. You want to be able to make your flex space really flexible, and that means open the door 24/7 if so be it. Or booking a meeting room, or booking a hot desk, or booking the conference room, or whatever may be in the building. You can do that with our technology. You can book 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, whatever it may be. And then once you created the booking for that space, you can invite people in. So your people you have in your meeting might be your lawyer, your accountant, your client.
Or can they also be given access?
You can share keys with them if you want to. And they don't have to download the app. You can just share one-time key with those people. If it's allowed by the landlord or the employer, that's, you know, all our technology, be it software, hardware, it's all modular. It's designed. You can have this piece of it, or you can have that part of it. Or you can white label it and you customize it depending on what the client wants. But what we've seen a lot of where we've seen the biggest increase in business recently has been with the flex operators and the co-working spaces around Ireland and the UK. Everybody's afraid of catching coronavirus and COVID-19. And yes, contactless is a way to battle it, and one of the tools you can fight back with it. But what we're starting to do now is use proximity with technology. So you don't have to take the phone out of your pocket. You don't have to touch the door handle. You can just once it recognizes that authorized person is within 1.5 meters or 2 meters of the door, it'll unlock the door. You can use your shoulder to push in the door, whatever it may be.
Okay, sorry, will you just explain that again? So essentially, you know, what previously you might have had to like hold your phone up to the door. Mm-hmm. Even though it's still contactless, you know, there's the effort of taking your phone out of the bag or whatever it might be. So effectively now, going forward, you can just have the phone on your person.
Exactly. So you get a seamless access through a building. So if you,
actually, the way cars now just need the key inside the car.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, you walk up to your car, and some of the new cars unlocks when you're close to it. So yes, it's similar to that. So you all know in a lot of buildings like hospitals and shopping centres and places like that, they have electric doors that open as you approach them. Yeah. It's similar in that kind of way, but in a commercial office environment or an office space or whatever it may be.
But it's doing it specific to the person and the permissions that person has.
Exactly. So if they don't have the permissions, the door's not going to open. It's not going to unlock. And if they try to unlock the door, send an alert to the building manager or the owner.
Okay. And again, that's all, you know, unlike, you know, maybe some of the technologies we were discussing earlier, the data from this technology is specifically about the person.
Exactly.
So this is where standard access has really kind of come to the fore as not just Irish, but as a global leader in terms of secure real estate data transmission. Mm-hmm. You know, it sounds to me that maybe back in 2014, you were perhaps a little bit ahead of the curve in understanding the value rather than just the responsibility. You know, obviously there are two sides of the same coin.
I suppose I didn't see the value in it. Only the value to me was that knowing that my tenants were safe in the building. Mm-hmm. But also, you know, just from a personal point of view, I was always careful about data and IP, intellectual property. So when data is created by access or by using lighting or heating or anything else like that, I think it's very important to secure data, and that's where we've become almost experts by default in the secure data transmission domain. So the data created by our clients and their clients, if our client might be a property developer, their clients would be a tenant, maybe an international, a global company. The data privacy, the securing of the data transmission is probably the most important thing for them. And we've become, I think we've become one of the best in the world in this space.
Yeah, we touched off it with Mihai earlier, but IoT now has become almost ubiquitous in modern buildings. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean we understand what it does. And IoT.
That's one of the big problems now is that IoT has exploded. So the Internet of Things, IoT, basically it's a device in a building that's connected to the internet or connected to a network, and it's feeding information back to a server. Mm-hmm. So that could be a smart lock. It could be a connected camera. It could be lighting. It could be the air conditioning. It's
quite sophisticated though in terms of zoning and getting data on building use and the use of individuals within buildings.
So the data can be, with our system, it can be by user, by door, by floor, by building, by location, by city, depending on where you want to see that data, it's available to you. But secure, like I said, securing that data is the most important thing. And unfortunately, we've seen a massive growth in IoT. It has really exploded, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, particularly with the advent of 5G. But what's not happening is the people who are releasing all these devices onto the market, they haven't even thought about security. Security hasn't even entered the development phase or the starting, where it should start from the very start. And that's where we have a big advantage. From security of data, that would be our strongest point, I would say.
Okay, and is there any way to know, because obviously we know that there are sensors all over contemporary buildings now, and not just contemporary buildings, in a smart city, right across the city, on lamps, on street lights. Mm-hmm. How do we know how secure, because that's all gathering data on us all the time. How do we know how secure any individual devices are?
I suppose it depends on the company you use to put it in. Do they have the ability to do it securely? And because every time you add a device or a sensor to a network, it creates a vulnerability into the system. One of the good things about 5G is that it will reduce a lot of those vulnerabilities in the system, because it's a specific network.
No. Yeah, no, look, I suppose one of the reasons why we ask questions like that is that, I'm very aware that we absolutely don't have all the answers, but I think that these are really important questions to ask, because by raising questions like this, we know the next stage of delivery, the next stage of innovation, or as Mihai says, the next stage of research, that has to happen. It's still very early days in a lot of this, but, I think it's important that we've some benchmarks. It's important that we understand. It's almost that, there are a lot of unknowns.
I suppose it's like, I'll give you an analogy. It's like back in the 80s when house alarms became popular. Mm-hmm. The burglar would skip the apartment or the house with the house alarm and go on for one. They didn't have one. Mm-hmm. And I suppose with technology, nothing is unhackable. Everything is hackable. It's just a matter of perseverance at the end of the day. And I suppose what we do is we make it really, really, really difficult for people to break into our system, so that they'll move on to the lower hanging fruit, the one that doesn't have the deep security that we build in.
Yeah, before we started recording, in an attempt for me to understand this a little bit better, I was asking you essentially what would be the worst case scenario of a building being hacked. And when you talked me through it, that's a pretty scary scenario. It's like something out of a movie that, to think that a building could be hijacked. Everything from the mechanical breathing of the building right down to the air coming in to the building. It's not just a case of, the lights, that there's huge vulnerabilities. Huge
vulnerabilities, and that's why we invest so much time and resource into building the security. Because we don't want these things to happen to our clients, because our reputation will be built on security. And it's going to happen at some stage in the next couple of years in the city of London or New York City. A building is going to be hacked, and they're going to lock the doors, they're going to switch off the aircon, they're going to switch off the lights. They're just going to play cat and mouse with a building owner. And it's just a matter of time that it does happen. So we're just making sure that we future-proof our clients' buildings, that these vulnerabilities are taken care of before they even open the door.
Yeah, and again, it sounds quite dystopian. And we talk about this in the future, but actually all of the capabilities and all the technology exists today.
It's already happened. One of the biggest door smart lock company in the world, their system was hacked last year, and hundreds of thousands of people's front doors were unlocked remotely until they fixed it a couple of hours later. But it just shows you, if the system is vulnerable or there isn't good security there, they're going to come after you. You're just an easy target for them.
Yeah.
So you just got to make it very difficult for them.
Okay.
They'll go on to go somewhere else.
Or to contact Standard Access.
Or talk to us and we'll secure it for you.
Okay. Look, I mentioned at the start of the show that actually, you were featured in the Sunday Independent just in the last couple of weeks. And so that piece announced that you were actually on a fundraising looking to raise funds at the moment in the region of kind of €4.5 million. So I suppose 2 questions. First of all, we know how that's going. We know you're in conversations, and we know that there's already conversations happening around that. But I suppose the more interesting question for me is, what is that money for? What's next for Standard Access?
Research and development. We already spend quite a lot of our resource in R&D and innovation and adding to our intellectual property. So we want to beef up that, build out a team there, and iterate more products, keep us ahead of the curve, give us that competitive advantage in markets. And we'll also go into the United States. We need to set up a base, put boots on the ground in the United States, and beef up our development team in London and Dublin too. Okay.
Damien, you've come so far, with Standard Access. There's been a lot of development and a lot of delivery very quickly, that most other Proptech companies or any technology companies would be envious of. So before we let you go, I have to ask, what advice do you have for founders here in Ireland?
Build what they call MVP, minimum viable product, as quickly as you can. And forget about all the features and all the glossy stuff. Just build something that works and might improve someone's problem by only 10%. If it does that, people will buy it off you. Go and talk to the clients you think will want to buy this. Go talk to 20, 30, 40 of them and get feedback. Say, listen, if I build this and it improves your bottom line by 10%, would you buy it? If they would, how much will you pay for it? Do that before you do anything, and try not to raise money at the start. Try and get the MVP built, get it into people's hands, and try and get yourself some paying customers. Then, if you need money, go out and try and raise it then.
I think that's really sound advice, Damien. Thank you. I'm just going to put one little proviso in there, like if you're not coming from a technical background yourself and you want to build the MVP,
it's quite difficult.
How do you know who to trust?
It's very hard. It's really hard, especially, I'm from a real estate background. So if I want to develop a new building in the morning, I'll go and talk to architects, or I'll talk to quantity surveyors, and I'll talk to engineers. And within the first 5 minutes, I'll know whether they know what they're talking about or not. I'm not techie at all. So first of all, when I got involved in this, I went talking to people in technology, and I was asking probably the dumbest questions I ever heard. And they said, oh yeah, we can do this and we can do this and we can do that. And I didn't know whether or not they could or not. All I say is to early stage founders, don't be afraid to talk to people and ask for advice. People sometimes say, I don't want to be telling people what I'm going to do in case they copy it. No one's going to copy your idea.
Yeah.
They don't have the time to do it. They're too busy with their own lives and their own businesses.
I think that's a really interesting one. It's one thing that you hear a lot on the startup scene, people being, holding their ideas and their new ventures very close to their chest. And, there's this great analogy there that essentially everybody's startup is their baby, and everybody thinks their baby is the prettiest. Nobody has any interest in your baby because they think theirs is much prettier anyway. And, I think that's really solid advice. So look, we'll leave it there for now. Damien, thank you so much. That was Damien Browne, CEO of Standard Access. Thank you for being so generous with your time and so forthcoming to talk about the early experiences, because it's so important for the next generation of tech startups, particularly here in Ireland. So
not at all, Carol. Thanks very much for having us on the show again. Really appreciate it.
Always. Anytime.
We're wishing you the best with the show. Thank you.
Do you know what? It's always a pleasure to visit Dingle as well. See, there's another competitive advantage that you have. So look, that's it from us today. Thank you for listening in to Proptech Ireland Property Matters Summer Special on Dublin South FM. You can get in contact with the show on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by emailing hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Also, my thanks to Peter Rice on sound and show producer Katie Talon of Hear Me Roar Media. We're back at the same time next week. From myself, Carol Talon, and all the team here, stay safe.